All right, welcome back, everybody.
Hey, good evening.
And guess what? Look who's here. The guy who could not get on the air because of the internet. And then he's over here. Now my Facebook page won't come up.
I am the common denominator with all your technical difficulties.
So I don't know what's going on, you know. But
Yeah.
anyway, we got Jim here finally, guys, from Optima Batteries. So we can, kind of like really listen to the stuff he's got to teach us. And by the way, I did not shrink. He just grew. He's over a foot taller than I am. So I'm the midget in the studio today, guys. I thought I'd just let you know that. You know, it's crazy. But Jim, thanks. I'm glad you finally made it.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. And that's one of the nice things about working for Optima. One of my coworkers, Paige Wilson, she's based in Southern California, and my boss, Cam Douglas, is in Orange County as well. They were out at the Raptor Rally out in Arizona last weekend. And headquarters is in Milwaukee, but because we've got people that are kind of spread around the country, when the enthusiast stuff pops up, it gives you an opportunity to show up in person versus, being 1,500 miles away up in Milwaukee. And I
Right.
can't, go out to the desert and enjoy some fun with the off-road guys with the Raptors, or I couldn't get down here and do a podcast about fishing.
So now you're here.
Yeah,
And
it's just a short drive.
everybody,
That's right.
Optima Batteries actually covers the whole gamut, everything from race cars, regular cars, marine, diesel too.
Yeah, we're for me it's T minus 3 days before I head out to the SEMA show in Las Vegas, and everything under the sun will be out there. There's boats out there. There's
I
low
love that
riders,
SEMA show.
lifted trucks, lowered trucks, drift cars, and all monster trucks, everything. So anything that needs a 12-volt battery, we probably have our hand in it.
Wow. And then you guys are, and one of the things we were trying to talk about last time, but we kept breaking up and everything else. Optima Batteries, you make all the different style batteries, right?
Well, we make AGM batteries, and we also make lithium batteries.
Okay, you're nothing to do with the lead acid.
Well, AGM is lead acid, but we're owned by Clarios, which makes probably about 2/3 of all the lead acid batteries in the country.
Okay.
So they just had me in Milwaukee last week in Glendale for meetings for our fiscal year 26, and we probably had 100 people in that room. And it's a lot of the people that work on the logistics side of things and people that oversee the plants all over the country. So even though Optima doesn't sell a branded flooded lead acid battery, there's a wealth of information there. And we're not afraid to recommend flooded lead acid batteries for some people because it's the right choice for their application. They might be getting ready to sell a car, or they've got a $500 boat they just want to get on the water. Get a flooded lead acid battery. It's cheap. Go out and have some fun.
Now, more on it, guess it's not-
Now you got a delay on your phone.
There you go.
There you go.
Now, one of the things that I did notice is how batteries have gone up in price. The other day I was at Walmart, and I remember their $89 batteries, and they were on sale for $139.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's probably worse on the West Coast where they get a lot of batteries that come in from Asia, and the tariffs are hitting them pretty hard. But the cost of lead, which is the main ingredient in batteries, has gone up significantly over the years. And then as fuel prices go up, so does the price of batteries, because the most expensive part of making any kind of battery is moving the lead around, whether it's getting it to the manufacturing facility or getting the finished product either to an automaker or,
Because of the weight.
yeah, just because of the weight. It's such a heavy product to ship around.
So that makes sense. Now, tell us a little bit about the difference between, because you just came off of this, between the regular batteries and your AGM first.
Sure. So a flooded lead acid battery is what you're going to find in most of the market. I live on the Harris chain, and when guys come into my canal and start fishing, and I quiz them on their batteries, which I do for just about everybody that comes in there, most of the guys use flooded batteries, which I think was a bit of a revelation for some people internally who spent a lot of time around major league fishing or like serious tournament offshore fishing, and they think most of the guys are AGM and they're moving to lithium when really most recreational anglers are still using flooded lead acid batteries. It's at Tractor Supply, it's at Rural King, Walmart, wherever people are going to get their batteries. It's the most affordable way to get power to your boat upfront in terms of upfront costs. So that's the popular choice for a lot of folks and a lot of dealerships too. They don't get extra margin necessarily for putting an AGM battery or a lithium battery in a boat unless the customer pays for it. So when they sell a new boat, they're probably going to put the cheapest battery in there they can to get as much margin.
So now tell us a little bit about, because I know that I remember I had one of these years ago. It wasn't Sears. Was it Sears or was it J.C. Penney's? I think it was the J.C. Penney's battery, lifetime battery.
Yeah, lifetime battery warranty.
I bought, and they wouldn't do it on Marine. But what I did is we just bought the big car truck batteries.
Sure.
Put them on the boats in those days. But I mean, I'm talking about so many years ago. But in those days, it was like $150, which was a lot of money for a battery. But
You
they
weren't
said
the only
for life.
Yeah, you weren't the only one. That was the last retailer that offered lifetime battery warranty. And when J.C. Penney went out of business, that liability was sold to Firestone Service Centers, because at that point, there's probably a couple dozen people that had those batteries left, and they just kept churning the batteries at Firestone. It was only for the original vehicle. So once somebody got rid of the car, and I think there was some lady who was like in her 90s and had like an old Mercury Comet or something, and she had gone through like 52 batteries or something crazy like that. She was the last one. And then once she went away, that liability kind of went, and nobody's been dumb enough to offer a lifetime warranty on a battery ever since, because it follows you. And it's, even though battery brands don't do that, there's a lot of battery brands offering warranties with terms that are longer than those brands are going to be around. And that leaves people hanging just as much. And I've seen it repeat itself. It started with power sports and it went to automotive. And now I see it in the Marine where, somebody sees the opportunity to get into the lithium battery business because they just go on Etsy or AliExpress and buy a dozen batteries and
Put a sticker on it.
Jim's 7-foot battery company. And now I'm in the battery business. And it's great if the batteries don't have issues. But as somebody who has worked in the battery business for 15 years knows, even if the batteries are good, customers are going to find a way to have issues with batteries. So you've got to be prepared for the warranty and the follow-up service. And so many of these brands just aren't. And we saw another one that was at ICAST a couple of years ago. They folded in April of this year because the guy just couldn't handle it. He couldn't carry the load of managing all the batteries that he sold to these people and have a certain percentage of them come back with warranty issues.
We got one guy who says AGMs are very heavy batteries.
Compared to, a Group 31 is a very common marine size.
That's all I use. Yeah.
The flooded batteries are the lightest. Well, lithium's really the lightest, but in terms of lead acid, flooded batteries are lighter. AGM batteries are significantly heavier. And really, that's kind of the tail of the tape that I tell a lot of folks to look at when they're shopping for lead acid batteries, whether it's flooded or AGM. Not every manufacturer or brand will list the specification, but look at the weight, because the weight really tells you what's going on. They can put more plates in there if they really want to, but then they don't make as much money. So you'll see some batteries that are like ridiculously affordable compared to others, but when you put those two batteries on a scale, one might be 6 or 7 pounds lighter, and that's the difference. And Optima batteries, in addition to having the AGM design and the pure lead design, we have cast straps that connect our cells. So they literally put the cells inside the case, they flip the case upside down, they dip it in molten lead and cast straps to connect the cells together, versus a regular flooded lead acid battery that kind of have what's known as tombstone welds, which is like a spot weld in between the cells. And it works. It's not as efficient at current flow into or out of the battery, and it's certainly lighter, but that's part of the tail of the tape for Optima.
Because I did notice that my 31s, man, they're heavy.
Yeah.
The suckers are heavy.
And that was the big driving force, especially in the marine space, for so many brands and in the industry to start moving in the direction of lithium batteries, because lithium batteries can be significantly lighter. In fact, I saw one advertised the other day that, for kids born in the 80s like me, or in the 70s and lived in the 80s, like a trapper keeper, like a 3-ring binder. And it's a 12-volt, 100-amp-hour battery in that shape. It's not even a box anymore. It's kind of like but that's where the lithium technology is headed, and that'll be great for some people. The challenge for boat owners with some of these batteries, and we see 36-volt lithium batteries, you just buy the one battery for your trolling motor, is the boat wasn't designed for that. It was designed for 3 12-volt batteries to be put in that spot together. And then some boat people that I talk to at ICAST and some of these other places will say, the boat was designed to have a certain amount of weight in this part of it. We anticipated having lead acid batteries in this part of it. And so if you're going 65 miles an hour in a bass boat and it's skipping across the water and it's lighter and it's out of the water more, you get a little more chine walk, and it's not the same handling boat that they designed it for. So, but yeah, I have to believe there's only so much of that comes into it, because gas weighs much, or gas weighs, X amount of pounds for each gallon of gas, and a boat's going to behave differently if it's got 10 gallons left in versus 30 or 40 gallons.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
we got another guy here. Donald says he's had an AGM battery from 2019 and still works.
And I'll tell you, the key for not just Optima batteries, but anybody who has any lead acid battery, and really it holds true for lithium, maintain the voltage in your battery. That's the best thing you can do to maximize performance and lifespan. And people think it's a 12-volt battery. So, well, 12 volts, it's fully charged. 12.0 volts is probably 40% or more discharged. What you want is at least 12.6 volts for our Blue Top Marine batteries, the deep cycle ones. It's 13 to 13.2 volts. And for the lithium batteries, it might be 14 volts. So you have to consult your manufacturer, understand what the voltage is. And when you come off the water, plug your batteries in right away. Get them charged up right away. Whenever any lead acid battery gets discharged below 12.4 volts and it sits, sulfation starts forming in the plates, which diminishes capacity, diminishes lifespan. So the pattern should be, when you get back home, plug it in right away, and then it's ready to go the next time you're ready to go out fishing. Not the night before, or I'm going to go out this afternoon, I'll plug it in first thing in the morning, because your batteries might be 50% discharged and sulfating, or they might not get fully charged in the amount of time that you think you've got to get them fully charged.
Now, as far as the AGM, is there any effect with salt water or anything? Because I know with lithium, we need to cover that. With lithium batteries, you got to be very careful around salt water. AGM, any things to watch out for?
Anybody who's owned any kind of boat on any body of water can tell you stories about, I forgot to put in my drain plug, or I forgot to take my drain plug out when I pulled it out and it got rained on and filled up in the driveway, or I was going through hull over and took water over the bow, or just somebody's big weight just took water over the bow. So you're going to get water in your bilge. That's why you have a bilge pump. So
That's why you have two. Like
yeah.
I have two.
Yeah. So you want to make sure you have a battery that's capable of working in those situations. Now Optima batteries are Blue Top AGM batteries. We put them in an aquarium, and we run a pump that shoots bubbles up in the aquarium all day. It shows, just to show people, these batteries are waterproof. You can put them underwater and they're going to be fine. Now there's limits to that. Our Orange Top Marine batteries are rated for up to 30 minutes and up to 3 feet of water. So you don't want to leave it down there all day. But if you take water and you get the bilge filled up for some reason, a heavy rainstorm comes along, it gives your bilge pumps time to work, time to empty the boat out. Not every boat battery, not every marine battery comes with those specifications, because it's not cheap. It costs extra to go to a lab and have it IP67 certified. In fact, we have a battery coming out. We're going to announce at the SEMA show next week. Corporately, they kind of announced it, so I'm allowed to talk about it. But it's a racing battery for race cars, and it's a small battery. It's probably going to weigh less than 20 pounds, but it's IP69 rated. I don't know why they needed IP69 rating for a car battery that's probably never going to go
Tell people
underwater.
what IP69
So
means.
IP67 is the ingress protection. So 6 means it's dust proof. So 67, 60, 65, 67, 69. Some brands we'll talk about were IP65 rated, so you can squirt it with a hose and it'll be okay. IP67 means you can fully submerge the battery for up to 30 minutes, up to 3 feet of water, and the battery will be fine. And then IP69 takes it to an extent further than that. And to be honest, it's been so long since I looked at IP69. Somebody just said it's going to be IP69. I'm like, really? We need IP69? Well, that's the way the battery turned out. And we don't, when we go out to build a battery, we were the first to market with AGM batteries. And people looked at us as lithium batteries started coming onto the market. So why aren't you guys offering a lithium battery? And the folks I work with would go to our engineering group and say, why aren't we offering a lithium battery? And they're like, well, hold on, take a step back here. We're watching what's going on in the motorcycle space, in the automotive space with lithium batteries, because they were in those spaces before they came to marine. And we saw the car fires, and we saw the flammability and the issues they were having with different chemistries. and they said it's not ready for prime time yet. And they said when we come out with a product, we want to make sure it's right. We want to make sure it's the right chemistry, lithium iron phosphate. We want to make sure the BMS, the battery management system, is robust and capable of handling whatever charging system gets thrown at it. And so we had to take a couple steps back and kind of we had sponsored anglers, guys who won Bassmaster Classic. They got offered cash by lithium battery brands to go with them. We said, take the cash. We're only giving you free batteries. And one guy took the cash and his boat caught fire the next year. And they tried to blame it on somebody tried to break into a bass boat at a motel and steal something and then cover up their tracks with, have you ever heard of that ever happening in any other situation? So, the long story of it is lithium technology wasn't ready for the prime time when some of these brands came out, and they learned the hard way. And brands have come and gone. Chimera batteries on the automotive side was 15 minutes from my house, and they were trying to sell into the Lotus car owner group, and they vanished. And those guys got stuck with some paperweights in the shape of car batteries. And so when we came out with our batteries, they're IP67 and they're UL listed and IEC rated at both the cell level and the battery level. So some brands might get UL listing at the battery pack level, and that's a basic safety standard, like puncturing the battery and all different kinds of ways that you can destroy a battery. Can you do this without the battery creating a hazardous situation, whether it's fire or some kind of chemical coming out or anything like that? So we're IP and UL and IEC rated at both the cell level and the battery level, and it just takes time. It takes time to do that, and it takes money. And some other brands are saying, yeah, we're working on it. You can say we're working on it indefinitely. We're not going to give something to the public that's not 100% ready to go.
Now, a lot of people always ask, why is your batteries like little round circles?
Yeah, the 6-pack shape.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting story. The technology, as the story goes, because it was well before my time, it was probably close to my birth back in the early 70s. They were developing the technology for NASA. And what they did was they took the lead acid and it was basically the AGM where the electrolyte gets put into fiberglass matting in between the positive and negative plates. It's absorbed glass mat is where the name AGM comes from. And it was that technology that they used. And what they found was it was a very robust design in terms of the structure of the battery versus a square box that, when you look at pillars in construction, it's a cylindrical pillar that goes up so there's some strength to that, and the cells are actually taller. And so a Group 31 battery I wish I had some with me. It has a certain space that the battery can fit in. And so the cells actually.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's got one behind you there.
Yeah, he's got one back there. He's got a dummy. Hey. We call them dummies because you can't lift a lead acid battery that easily. So the cell material actually comes up a lot higher in our batteries. If you take the lid off of a lead acid battery, you might see the cells come up to about here, and then you've got the connections above it. And we really maximize the space, because when you look at the footprint on the bottom, as some other battery brands will tell you, there's some voids here and some extra space. And so in order for us to really compensate for that, the cell height is taller, and then we have those cast straps that connect the cell together. So you might not always see the same reserve capacity or amp hour rating on these cylindrical batteries that you might see on a flat plate battery, but the cranking power is really there because the cast straps that connect the cells really make a difference and accepts current quickly, so they recharge very quickly, and it delivers power when you need it as well. So, and then, as it's been frustrating for me, we kind of underrate our batteries a little bit. And I'll go out and pick up a truckload of batteries at Continental Battery on Friday in Las Vegas and take it to the bronze lot to put into vehicles. And we'll have load testers out there, and we'll load test these batteries, and the battery might be rated at 800 cold cranking amps. The thing tests out at 1200 cold cranking amps. And that's just, there's a certain standard that companies will look to, and some will say, if it's 800, it's got to be 800, and it might be 850 or 880, but ours are way beyond that, and they're way beyond that for a lot of cycles into the life of the battery, to the point that, I've got batteries that are 5 or 6 years old. They're still, 200, 300 cranking amps beyond what they're rated at, as they're still load testing that way. So It's conservative in the way we rate the batteries. And then because of the efficiency of the cast straps and the pure lead design, you can get more of the amp hours out of an AGM battery in general. And then especially a battery with 99.99% pure virgin lead versus a flooded lead acid battery that has a lead tin alloy and has some impurities in it that just, it doesn't work as well. It doesn't hold as much electricity, and you just can't get as much out of it.
And you see how strong I am? Look at that. But now, explain the difference between this and then a trolling motor battery.
So this is basically a trolling motor battery.
It's a dual purpose.
It's a
right?
dual
Blue
purpose
top
battery. You can use it for starting or trolling motors. And
That's what I use it for.
Yeah.
That's all I use, the blue top.
and we have a 120 amp hour lithium battery that you can use to start engines or use as a trolling motor. And in the lithium space, at least for now, most of the brands out there are offering batteries. They're around 100 amp hours, and they're only for deep cycle use. So only for trolling motors. Because I get a lot of guys that come in my canal and they have some off-brand lithium battery. He's like, but I'm still using your batteries for cranking. I was like, of course you are, because that company doesn't offer a cranking battery. It's hard to come up with a BMS, a board that can tolerate that amount of current coming out at that high of a rate. When you're talking about a trolling motor, it's not demanding as much current, and it's doing it over a longer period of time. So it's not pushing as much electricity out of the battery.
Now, for example, and these are questions that I have.
Sure.
And I'm sure there's a lot, people don't like to ask questions sometimes, but I run Yamaha. So on a 300 Yamaha, you got a 70 amp battery. On a 30-minute run, how much charge do you think will go back into this battery?
So it holds true on the marine side as it does on the automotive side. I always tell folks, when Yamaha or Mercury or Suzuki or anybody designs an engine, they don't design it necessarily with the mindset that some guy's going to take this and he's going to put it on a boat with 150 amp hours of batteries connected to trolling motors, and he's going to run them down to 0%, and then he's going to make a 15-minute run to his next spot and expect them to charge back. It could be that, or it could be a guy that has twin 300s on a pontoon boat, and he keeps it running all day long, and the batteries are near a full state of charge. So in general, the boat engine manufacturers and the car manufacturers expect that most batteries will be near a full state of charge pretty much all the time. So that's why it's so important when you come off the water, plug it in, charge it right away. Because even if it's capable of recovering a deeply discharged battery, you're going to generate a lot of heat, and that charging system is going to get worn out very quickly when it's asked to do something other than maintain near full state of charge. There's some expectations, certainly in the fishing areas where guys are out of the water, they're trolling, they're in heavy current, they're in high winds, they're going to discharge those batteries quite a bit. And boat engine manufacturers know that. They build a certain amount of robustness into those charging systems. But what they don't anticipate or they don't build for is every possible scenario. Right. The guy who discharged his batteries down to 10%, parked his boat, came back a month and a half later, pulled it out, barely had enough power to start his boat, and now you're going to cook that alternator in the Florida sun as it's scrambling, trying to push current back into those batteries.
And tell me this, hey Mike,
Yeah.
this is a good question. Why would somebody 2 weeks ago, I saw this guy launches his boat, the battery's dead. He jumps it, he takes the battery out of his truck, jump starts it, puts the battery back in the truck, and leaves the dock. I said, you got a dead battery, guy. You expect this battery to restart this motor, especially you got a live well running?
You're going to go out 40 miles.
Hope it charges. It's only going, 10 minutes from the dock.
Yeah.
I'm saying you're looking to get towed in.
Yeah. So that's why Seato and Towboat USA are in existence, because of people like that. But what I always try to tell people is, if you're ever in a situation, whether you're on the water or you're on the land, and your battery needs to be jump started, treat those jumper cables or that jump pack or however you get that battery started, you're now in the electrical equivalent of, I ran out of gas and I just put a gallon of gas in my tank. Where are you going next? You're going to go to the gas station, right? Yeah, you're good. You're not going to be like, oh no, it'll fill up with gas on its. It's not going to fill up with gas on its own, okay? And you're going to beat your charging system up. And so, I hear a lot of complaints from people, not just with our batteries, with batteries in general. Yeah, my battery, it wouldn't start, so I had to jump start it. Then I got it to work, which is probably 10 minutes away. And at the end of the day, it wouldn't start, so I had to get jump started at work. And I took it home, and it just wouldn't charge up. And I always say, did you put it on the battery charger? Well, no, I jump started it, or I had to jump. Well, that's where you're running into the trouble. See, and we had 2 weeks of lockdown, and everybody was supposed to park and not go anywhere. I'm sitting in these internal meetings saying, just from my experience in dealing with customers when their vehicles sit, I said, we're not going to be able to make enough batteries to sell to all these people. What we should be doing, and we did, was we pushed battery chargers like crazy on people. We said, look, you need to buy a battery charger if you don't have one in your garage, because if you're going to leave your car sit for 2 weeks during lockdown, battery's going to be dead, or it's going to be close to it.
Mhm.
And a jump start's not going to be the end all be all. You've got to get that battery recharged again with a battery charger. So it's, for as long as people will have 12-volt batteries in their vehicles, and it doesn't matter if it's an EV or a gas-powered car or a boat, if the battery is dead, it needs a battery charger to fully recharge all the way, not just a jump box or a set of jumper
All right,
cables.
well, what we're going to do is we're going to take a little break here and let's get some fishing reports in, huh, Mike?
Yeah, sounds good.
So we don't run too late. So pick somebody, Mike. Who do you want?
Well, let's throw Jessica up there real quick.
Here we go. Did Hota fall asleep?
Yeah, maybe.
I ran out
you
to buy a
there.
battery charger. Ran out to buy a battery
Yeah.
charger.
You would have to buy
You didn't realize the importance of it.
Jessica.
You throw Jessica's report up.
Hey guys, Captain Jessica with the Old Hookem Charters out of Chaska, Florida. This week, the redfish, sheephead, and black drum have been doing pretty well. The snook haven't been so active the last week and a half, so I'm hoping with this cold front, it will fire them back up. The only tough day I had was on Wednesday, and that was because it was the clear skies, bright blue, which usually seem to be tougher for me. Did see some cool stuff in the river this week. The fish are seeming to coming back into their winter patterns. We've been fishing the low tide, which are now becoming the negatives again. So just be careful when you go out, watch your tides, plan everything accordingly, make sure your trolling motor batteries are plugged up and charged good, make sure you have a push pole or something to help you just in case you need it. I went out with Travis Roberts from Happy Place Adventure on Thursday. We also did it on a low tide. Seemed to be really, really good. We caught a lot of nice redfish, that 26 to 27 mark, a couple little trout, a black drum. So fishing has been pretty good this week. If you get out there, just be careful. Like I said, watch your tides, watch your winds. If you want to book a charter with me, you can call 352-464-7309.
Thanks, Jessica.
We back?
Yeah, we're back.
All right.
Yeah, the battery stories.
Jim was telling me all kind of, different battery stories.
Yeah.
And let's, have you got any questions, Mike?
No, the only one I guess would, with obviously with the lithium batteries that we have, and everything you see about lithium batteries on a boat is usually negative from the media, with fires, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, we had the flooding with the hurricanes, et cetera. So a lot of people are very hesitant about doing any lithium batteries in their boat because of that reason. What would be the difference between, say, Optimus battery in preventing that happening, or is there a certain reason why that happens because of the way the battery's made?
Like I said before, I think some lithium brands came to market before the technology was ready. And lithium iron phosphate is a newer version of lithium. There's about 5 or 6 commonly used chemistries, but lithium iron phosphate is known to be very stable and and a low propensity to have, thermal runaway and things like that. And what I think a lot of people saw early on in lithium were some of those fires that would have issues. There's still people selling batteries, which blows me away, that don't have battery management systems in the battery, which is kind of like a little circuit board that makes sure the battery cells each get the same amount of voltage, and that one's not getting overcharged, and that too much current isn't coming in. It'll shut the battery down if that happens. And so there's some companies that still have batteries that don't have BMS systems, but man, most of them now I think are generally pretty safe. Where most consumers would run into trouble is, again, a guy, Bob's Battery Company out of Bolingbrook, Illinois, he's buying batteries from somebody he's never met, a factory he's never visited, and they're telling him all the right things. What you want is A cells, and all our batteries have A cells. And then you get the Will Prouse guy on YouTube who cracks the batteries open, and he's like, look at this one. They got mismatched cells, and these aren't A cells. These don't add up to the amp hours this battery is rated at, and it kind of exposes them. And Will is great at doing that, and he specializes more kind of in the overland community, but he can only take it so far. There's certain things that he doesn't cover off on that are important to marine users, like, is the battery IP67 rated so it's waterproof? When I talk to guys, and this is the surprising thing for me with lithium batteries, I talk to a lot of anglers, pros and serious amateurs that come into my canal. Nobody's on their first set of lithium batteries. Everybody's on set 2 or more than that. And so I get to ask them about the failure mode. What happened? And the most common failure mode that I've heard from all these guys is water intrusion into the case.
Wow.
And because a lot of these companies, and I watched an interview with a guy who's the president of another lithium brand out on the West Coast, and they asked him about the batteries being waterproof and being submerged, and the guy kind of chuckled. He didn't have a lot of marine experience. He said, if your battery's underwater, you've got bigger issues than the battery being underwater. And it's like, you don't get it, man. People put their batteries underwater in boats that have nothing wrong with them. They just, got themselves in a spot. Yeah.
Mhm.
And that brand is actually, they were making a big push in the bass fishing, competitive bass fishing space. I think they had enough warranty issues that they're like, let's stick to the dry stuff, the overlanding and the camping and places where people aren't going to dunk the batteries, because it costs more money to get the batteries IP67 rated. So anybody that has a battery, a lithium battery that's IP67 rated, probably has a tattoo that says IP67 on their arm. They put it in all their advertising. They try to make a point of letting everybody know, because it's the minimum standard that you would want. IP65 is just not going to cut it. It's shown that it hasn't cut it for a lot of folks, and some people don't even know to ask for something like that. But the UL listing and the IEC listing I mentioned are extra steps that Optima takes as a brand and a manufacturer to make sure that our batteries are the safest possible products that we can get out to consumers, because safety is a big thing. And when you work in the battery business, as long as this company has, because before it was Clarios, it was owned by Johnson Controls, and I mean, it goes back as far as the batteries basically go, and they've had lawsuits, and they've had people come at them for a variety of things that they try to pin or blame on the battery. You don't cut corners when it comes to safety. So you want to make sure that the product that you bring to market is the safest possible product, and you've done everything possible.
Now, when you hear a lot of these companies are saying, well, we got a 7-year warranty or 10-year warranty on lithium.
Read the fine print, man.
Well, I know you said something about some of the fine print that, well, let's face it, you're going to buy a battery. Do you ever really read any kind of fine
Nobody
print?
does.
No,
That's why
whatever the guy says, oh, this is a 7-year lithium battery. It's great for your boat. This is exactly what you want. I never had anybody ever say, read this piece of paper first.
Yeah. And the battery industry probably does this to themselves. They did it with cold cranking amps before the warranty stuff came along, where they're like, 1,000 cold cranking amps. Rawr. Do you need 1,000? We live in Florida. We don't need any cold cranking amps. It never gets to 0 degrees down here. So, but they're selling cold cranking amps, and that sounds powerful, so people pay attention to that. And it's the same thing with warranties. 7-year warranty, 10-year. We got the longest. We got a 15-year warranty. And nobody ever looks at the fine print until you go in the forums and the battery groups on Facebook, and people are like, yeah, they charged me $150 after I had to pay to ship my batteries back to them to evaluate them, to decide if they were going to give me a warranty claim. And then when they took $300 from me for shipping and evaluation. Then they said they give me 50% off on a new battery. It's like, that's not a free replacement warranty. So there's a lot of that going on. If you can't find the fine print, it doesn't take long to read it, but read it. And if you can't find it, go look for another brand.
What about, and I thought about this, does it make a difference? And you kind of said something, I touched on this a little bit earlier. You're running a 36-volt trolling motor. Is it better to have three 12 volts hooked up than to get a 36-volt battery?
It's a common question, and I think the jury's still out on it. I think there's certain applications where if you can get a flats boat or a boat that is fishing in shallow water and you can get one 36-volt battery that's lighter than the three 12-volt batteries, it's going to save you some weight and might make your draft a little better for the shallow areas. That might be a best case scenario for somebody to use a 36-volt battery, but I think the jury is still out on whether that's the best move for people to make in terms of longevity and cycling the battery, and if the batteries hold up over time. Because quite frankly, there's not a lot of companies that offer the 36 volts right now. And I know we've looked at them. We were just filming last month in Glendale, and there's a massive lab in there. They got everybody's batteries in there, and they're poking and prodding at them. They got them connected to things, and so they're evaluating it and examining it. And if they feel like there's a way for us to make a 36-volt battery that makes sense for consumers, because again, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of these boats are designed to fit certain battery sizes in a certain space, and a 36-volt battery doesn't necessarily do that. The 3-ring binder size battery doesn't necessarily do that. How do you secure that? That's as important as the battery itself.
Now, on the lithium side, it's when everything is going like 50 amp hours, I guess, is that what it is?
100 amp hours for a Group 31 battery is pretty
What does
standard.
that equal to as far as like a regular battery?
So our Group 31 Optima Blue Top batteries are like a 75 amp hour battery. So a 100 amp hour battery isn't just an incremental move up from that 75 amp hours, because lithium batteries are far more efficient than lead acid batteries or AGM batteries. You're going to get a lot more of that 100 amp hours out of the lithium battery than you will out of a 75 amp hour AGM battery. So it's really, in terms of capacity, it's a major step up for people to go with a lithium battery, because it'll have more capacity and it'll have more usable capacity.
Okay, because I know a lot of people don't understand that part about lithium batteries.
It's a game changer in terms of efficiency, in terms of how quickly it recovers in charging. And there's a lot of pluses to lithium batteries, and I can't deny that. But as we sit around and talk to customers about their applications, again, it comes down to each individual and how they use their boat and what they need the batteries for. And as I said, I'm not reluctant at all to recommend flooded batteries to people. If somebody wants to sell their boat, nobody's going to give them an extra $5,000 because they've got lithium battery. Put the cheapest black box battery you can find in there that starts the boat for the test on the water, and the person is happy, and off they go. And if they want to upgrade, they can upgrade.
They can upgrade.
And then, if you're a casual angler who goes out maybe 6-7 times a year, flooded batteries are great. And you don't have $100,000 boat. You got something you bought off of Craigslist, and you just want to go out and have fun. A flooded battery will work great, and the replacement cost after a year or 2 or 3 on that flooded battery is pretty minimal compared to what you have to pay for an AGM, which is a significant step up. But then you get into that area where somebody might be out cycling those batteries a little more often than that, and they might be on the water 30, 40, 50 days a year. That's when you start looking at the AGM batteries and say, this makes a lot of sense, because the AGM batteries have far more cycle life than a flooded battery. They can handle the deep discharges better than a flooded battery. They can recharge faster than a flooded battery. And then when you get to the lithium battery, it's another incremental step up of significance from the AGM technology. And I talk about, and it's not just professionals, but professionals are the first people that I would talk about for lithium batteries, whether they're a professional fisherman and they fish in tournaments, or they're a guide, or they're a commercial fisherman. People that are on the water almost every day of the year, or 200 days of the year. Lithium batteries make a lot of sense for those folks. People who live on their boats, people who spend a lot of time cycling their batteries. They go to Party Cove and they beach their boat and they play their tunes all afternoon long. A lithium battery makes a lot of sense for people like that. But you have to understand what your particular usage is and say, yeah, I'm that middle guy. You know, I get out 10 or 12 times a year and we go at it pretty hard and we do an AGM battery makes sense for me. I'm going to get a long life cycle out of this thing versus a flooded battery. But the step up to AGM, it's just not worth it for me. But a guy who's a commercial angler who's on the water 250 days a year, lithium's a no-brainer.
So
All right, let's get.
We got a question real quick though.
Yeah.
Wanting to see if Optima makes a 50 amp hour lithium.
We do not make a 50 amp hour lithium battery. And as I mentioned before, our Group 31, which is the primary marine size that we have right now, they come in two ratings. One's 150 amp hour, that's deep cycle only. One's 120 amp hour, and you can use that for engine starting or deep cycle use. And we have power sports batteries, which are significantly smaller. They handle cycling pretty well as well, but they really don't have that capacity. So even in the automotive space, guys are always eyeing up the Quad 30 battery that's kind of like a big Harley Davidson battery and saying, can I use that in my car? I'm like, please don't. You can start your V8 with it and you get away with it for a while, but if you go to a track and you have a belt get thrown off your car and your charging system doesn't work and you've got a 10 amp hour battery, it's not going to have enough energy in that battery to supply your vehicle to safely get you off the track and get you out of harm's way. So I always recommend using an automotive battery, an automotive application, and marine battery, marine application.
All right, let's get. You want to get Tony Franklin on?
Yeah, let's get Tony.
All right, let's get Tony.
All right, Captain Tony Franklin back with this week's fishing report. Just coming in on Sunday this week after a fishing charter. It's been a windy finish to the week. Really windy today. Really windy Saturday. But here comes my fishing report right now. The trout bite still is really, really good in deep water grass flats. There's been some snook around residential canals, deeper water around pockets of mangroves, mostly on the outgoing tide has worked the best this week. There's been a few redfish also around. Also catching those way up under the mangroves. They're pinned way up under there is where we've been catching them this week on the redfish. There's been plenty of other action out there. Bonnet head sharks. We're catching Jack Crevalle. We're also catching, with the spotted sea trout, we're catching some silver trout also. We also are catching some mackerel, but that changes day to day. So it's kind of hit or miss on the mackerel, but there's plenty of action out there. The water temperature is going to get cooler. The fishing's just going to get better and better. So in between these windy days, you're going to have to deal with the wind a little bit this time of year, but it's a great time to get out fishing. So that's my report for this week. I'll see you next week, tight lines, and I'll see you on the water.
Left, so
Appreciate it.
you get so much credit.
We're back, Serge.
Oh, we're back. Okay.
More battery stories with
Yeah.
Captain
Yeah, I
Serge
know.
and Optima Jam.
And I was
Yeah.
talking to Jim, and I want to touch on this a little bit. But this thing about like the 7-year battery warranty, I think Sears was one of the best ones on this deal when they came out with it, because you would go in and buy a Sears Die Hard on sale, the 7-year battery, for like $139 in those days, which was expensive.
Yeah,
But
I
you
have.
said, wow, 7 years, free replacement the first 2 years. Well, you know, those batteries last you about 28 months.
Yeah.
Then they would go bad. Then you would go in and say, oh yeah, you got 4 years and 3 months left a warranty on this battery. But the list price, the warranty, the discount is based on the list price of the battery, and that battery listed at $500. So by
Right.
the time they gave you the prorated discount of what the credit they owed you, you still paid $150, $200 for another battery.
So here's the way the math works on a lithium battery on a prorated battery warranty. You've got a 7-year warranty, and we'll call the battery a $150 battery. I did some quick math on my phone, so I'm not like Nostradamus here. So the battery's $150, and 7 times 12 for 7 years times 12 months, that's $1.78 a month. So you multiply that by 25, and if your battery fails in month 25, just outside of the 2-month free replacement warranty, you have to pay $44.64 for your replacement battery. And by the time you get to year 6 and 11 months, you're almost paying for a brand new battery. You're paying for a brand new battery minus a $1.83 discount. And that battery doesn't come with a new warranty. It comes with the remainder of your warranty.
Right.
So you get one more week or one more month of warranty on that battery that is $150 on the original price minus $1.83. What happens, as you mentioned, the battery is on sale for $150. The normal price is $200, and 200, let's see, 200 divided by 1.83 equals, I did that wrong. Let's see. So 7 times 12 equals 84. So 200 divided by 84 equals, so now that's a $2.38 month battery. So it went from $1.73, so it's a lot more. And it's the thing of it that people get lost on is when you go in to get your warranty return, you're not just going in for that. Oh, look, I need one of those. I need that screwdriver. I need some shop rags. I need some oil from it. And they know that. So it's really a function of marketing with a prorated warranty, because they know every time a person sets foot in their retail location, they can count on them purchasing X amount of dollars.
You know what we used to call that in the industry I was in the lumber and hardware? We called it selling the French fries. You would run things on sale,
Yeah.
like a lawnmower, $5 over cost. But then we would tell all the employees, remember, when the guy comes in to buy the lawnmower, that means he's getting ready to start cutting the grass for the season. He's going to need fertilizer. He's going to need probably a rake.
He's going to need some yard bags.
All this stuff. So that's the French fries. We're not making any money. We're bringing them in the door to buy that lawnmower at a heck of a good price. Now we make money, and McDonald's was famous for that. They would give you the hamburgers dirt cheap,
Yep.
but then you would pay $1.99 for a little bag of fries that cost them 20 cents.
Salty hamburgers that made you thirsty.
Yeah.
I need a big drink.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, that's in the restaurant business. You give them salty appetizers, everything else to make more drinks. That's just normally what it is.
let's get Jim Pace in, huh?
Sounds good.
Hey guys, this is Jim with your Pasco County Fishing Report. Finally made it offshore to do a little hog fishing. Earlier in the week, the wind died down and the water was nice. So I did the best I could to get offshore, have some fun, get on some hogfish. It was a great bite. Everything went good as according to plan. So I figured I'd give you guys just a couple tips and tricks on how you guys can get on hogfish as well. And then also maybe some bycatch that you guys can fill your cooler with. First thing, spots. Right now I'm looking at 40 feet is about 40 to 50 feet is where I'm hitting. I know they get in there as little as 20 feet, 30 feet. If you got good spots, that's Swiss cheese bottom or right off of hard bottom. Those spots are great as well. I just tend to find the larger size ones in that 40 to 60 foot range. And I usually get larger size mangroves out there as well. What I basically look for on the sonar is a nice hard bottom, which would be more of a Swiss cheese bottom as well. I'm not really looking too much for rock piles. I usually sit more on just hard straight bottom with some coral, things like that on that. Sponges, all those types of things. Anywhere basically where you're finding porgies, you're going to find mangrove snapper. You're going to find a lot of different bycatch on those areas. But if you find porgies or red grouper, smaller red grouper, you're right in the good area for hogfish. That's the best advice I can give you. If you're pulling up porgies and red grouper on the smaller size red grouper, you're perfectly where you need to be for hogfish. You're going to have to go through a lot of shrimp to get through them. It's going to be, I go out 6, 7, 8 dozen at a time when I go out, even when I'm by myself. And you'll go through them just getting grunts. Now, there's nothing wrong with keeping grunts. They make good fish tacos and things like that, but you will go through a whole bunch of them before you get to the hogfish. But be patient. Be patient. Because if you're in the right area and you're pulling stuff up, you're definitely going to end up with a hogfish. I promise you. I'll go over a few rigs that I use, just so you guys can see what I personally use. If the tide is not moving fast, if it's kind of a slow tide, I'll go straight to hog balls, 3/4 ounce or 1 ounce, depending on how bad the water is moving. but that usually allows it to sink slow enough to where I can get bycatch, mangrove snapper, things like that. And it'll also hold bottom. The key is you got to hold bottom. Definitely hogfish are on the bottom rooting around. So the main rig that I use almost every time when I'm just strictly hog fishing, 2 ounce egg sinker, knocker rig with 2 beads on a circle hook, 2-aught. That is my go-to. I will pinch the tail off of the shrimp. I will come up through the back of the shrimp, and then I will just let it sit on the bottom. Like I said, you're gonna go through a lot of grunts. One good advice I can give you when it comes to hogfish though, they do not just grab it and run. They will sit there and barely tug on it, barely tug, to a point where you just pull your rod up and hopefully you can get the hit, because they do not grab it and run. If you get something grabbing and running, it's definitely not a hogfish. Another tip and trick, what I do is hogfish are very curious. If you ever see any underwater film of hogfish, they're always coming over to action. So when I drop it down, I'll let it hit the ground, I'll bring it back up, I'll slam it against the ground again, I'll bring it back up, slam it against the ground again. And generally that will bring the hogfish over to the area and get you guys on a bite. It's worked timeless for me. It's worked really well. So that's always what I try and do. I just use a normal inshore saltwater rig when it comes to my reels and rods. Medium heavy. You know, I use a 15-pound braid, 20 to 30-pound mono as my leader. It all really depends. It depends on if I'm getting broke off, I'll jump up to a 30. But most of the time, hogfish don't really go into any structure, so I can generally pull them off the bottom with just 20-pound. Another great thing is you will, like I said, get mangrove. If you look in the picture, I ended up catching quite a few mangrove snapper, as well as our limit on hogfish. So it worked out really well. Once again, it's definitely, if you're on an area that has hard bottom, or if you're on a ledge, just get to the top of the ledge, 20 to 30 yards off that ledge, and start fishing. And just go through the shrimp, because you will get a lot of grunts and a lot of bycatch. So if you have a lot of people with you, it'll be super fun, because they'll constantly have action. It's great action. But the key is finding that spot, finding hard bottom or finding Swiss cheese bottom. If you're catching, like I said, small red grouper, porgies, and small, or I should say medium-sized grunts, you're on the right spot. You will catch them. They will be there. So 40, 50 feet, find the spot, use one of those rigs I mentioned, and do the tricks that I mentioned, and you will get your limit of hogfish, I promise. No inshore for me this week. Everything, like I said, only got out that once, and then the wind started blowing, so I stayed away from inshore this week. So no advice on inshore from me, just the little offshore tips and tricks for the hogfish. So hopefully I'll get out this week. The weather's getting ready to change. I saw the forecast. It's going to be some interesting next couple days. So I'm going to do what I can to get out and maybe get you guys a good update for next week. Thanks.
Deleted those.
Thanks, Jim. Why don't we go ahead and throw in Pam's report, because we're running out of time.
YouTuber stays on.
Yeah.
So the channels.
Okay, day 3 of fishing, pre-fishing for the Elite Redfish Series in Jacksonville. And look at that. I would say that is a perfect 27. Now we just got to figure out where we're going to fish this 2-day tournament out here. But these Jackville Reds do not want to give up.
Hey, this is Pam coming to you from Tampa Fishing Outfitters and your recent kayak report. We were in Jacksonville, so yeah, it is on the other side of the coast, but the redfish bite was crazy. Redfish everywhere. It was a great opportunity to get out there. We had a major tournament, so our target was redfish. Got a lot of beautiful fish. We also found trout and big flounder. The grass we were fishing in was really, really tough, and it was a flood tide, which meant we had to get inside the grass. Additionally, we were dealing with high winds and high currents. The best option we had was the Maddox jig head, and it caught 3 of the 4 fish that we brought in, as well as big fish for the tournament. So I was very excited about that. Tight lines, if you have any questions, holler at me. I'll be happy to answer them for you.
Hey, Mike, you think we ought to get your fishing report in?
Yeah, go ahead and throw
Yeah.
mine in there because we got one more question we can ask Jim before we
Yeah, and
sign
then we can
off.
wrap it up. Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
Hey, how you doing? Captain Mike Haynes, Fishbones Charters out of Crystal River, Florida. Well, pattern hasn't changed too much recently, just because we've had this warm weather, but guaranteed later this week, everything's going to change tremendously. But for right now, there's still some good trout bite out on the flats. It's just kind of hit or miss. You're going to have to cover a lot of water, throwing some jigs around or throwing some popping corks with some shrimp underneath. You're going to go through a lot of little guys to get you a limit, but the trout are there. They're just waiting. And in fact, they're probably waiting for this weekend to happen. A little cooler weather, it'll bring them in a little bit better. But mainly catching them on, just jigging some jigs around, some soft plastics. Seems to be the darker colors seem to be a little bit better right now than the lighter colors. And I think it's mainly because some of the water is stained, but not only that, they're kind of looking more toward the shrimp pattern. That's pretty much what they're going to rely on in the wintertime, is those crustaceans of shrimp. So darker colors maybe look a little bit more like shrimp, probably get you a better bite than any other color right now. It seems to be working for us very well. The redfish are just, again, everywhere. You just have to kind of pick your island, pick your spot, and just kind of keep moving. We've had a couple high tides lately, and they have been pushing back into the mangroves as a high tide is there. But as that water drops out, they're definitely dropping out into the holes and pockets and stuff like that. So you just kind of find them. Really, they're just about everywhere. So it's not too difficult to find them using either shrimp, pinfish, cut bait, any way you can. Snook as well. Snook are everywhere. You just have to find your spot, find your school. And if you're in the clear water, definitely use that distance to your advantage. Once they see you, it's pretty much over. So definitely, if you can, try to locate them way ahead of time before they see you. Do a lot of fan casting around. Float something back on a bobber quite a ways away from you, just to see if there's a school in that area. If you know there's some snook there, it tends to work at times. Let's see, anything else? Other than that, we're waiting for the temperatures to drop here. I think in the 40s is what we're going to get around here, up here in Crystal River area. So the water temperature is going to drop drastically. It's probably going to take about 3 days or so for them to acclimate to it. But we'll see how much that drops, how long of a stint this cold weather is going to sit in there. That'll dictate the water temperature. But expect those fish to move after this front. And we'll be letting you know what happens next week. It's Captain Mike Haynes, Fishbones Charters, Crystal River, Florida. See you next week.
You guys, so anything you tell me.
Yeah, and I did that report before we went fishing, and you saw that big red. That was a 43-incher.
Whoa.
Wow.
It was a monster. And
So how many of those we're going to catch on Wednesday?
Well, I don't know.
Wait a minute. Put yourself in a bind.
Yeah, we that one just that was one of those chances because I haven't seen or caught a redfish that size since I've been up in Pensacola.
I caught him in July when I was in Louisiana filming that third day. We went with the same captain. We went fishing 3 days in a row. And the first 2 days, we averaged almost 40, 50 redfish a day, up to 28, 130. So
That's not fishing, that's catching.
So the third day, we said, Louis, we got 2 great shows. Is there a chance that we can get into a couple of big reds? Well, there's just a few, just to make it different. He said, well, I got this rock jetty that goes into the Gulf of America. But he said, it's an hour run and could be hit or miss. We could go there and never get a bite, maybe get one. And we pulled 8 redfish between 40 to 48 inches off this rock jetty. and made one heck of a good
That's
show that's going to
amazing.
air in January. But we're going to let Jim wrap it up. He's got a few things that he wants to wrap up. And
Somebody asked about emerging battery technology after lithium.
Right.
And I have to be a little careful about what I say. And I always tell people internally, remember, I'm the guy with the keys to the social media account. So don't say anything to me that you don't want the whole world to know about. So a lot of folks talk about sodium technology. I think there's actually some products on the market right now. And again, it might be one of those deals where it might be a little bit early to have a definitive answer, but the positives of sodium basically are that salt, it's a lot more accessible element for a lot more of the world. And it's not that we don't have lithium reserves in this country. We just have them in places like New Hampshire where nobody wants you to go dig in the ground for lithium. So if they can find a technology like sodium that is more readily available in terms of the components, you don't have to rely on other countries, not necessarily China specifically, but some instability globally in terms of your sources. I think they'll move in that direction if it makes sense. But it's got to get to a point where it makes a good business case. And we kind of mentioned it when I was telling you the Prius battery story. We're an enthusiast brand. Why are we messing around with Prius batteries? Well, they're all in that one space, and we can ship them all out there.
people will buy them.
And people buy them. They do a really good job. So it'll be one of those deals. It'll be an economies of scale thing probably where they'll see it and say it's reached a point where it's as good or better than what we have now. And we can manufacture it at a price point that is competitive and over the long haul, it'll make a lot of sense.
So just to wrap it all up, just kind of, what's the warranty on the on your AGMs and your lithium?
So our Marine Blue Top AGM batteries is a 2-year free replacement warranty. The warranty on our Orange Top lithium marine batteries is 5 years free replacement. We sell a D1200 plus battery charger maintainer on our website. You buy any of those batteries and you buy the charger at the same time, we know it's going to work. We know it's going to help. We'll add a free replacement warranty year onto that warranty. So it'll be 3 years for the Blue Tops, 6 years for the Orange Tops, and no proration, no funny stuff, no evaluation fees for warranty, or you've got to pay this and that before.
You just take it to the dealer you bought it from, or
you take it to the dealer you bought it from. If it's a Marina, or if most of it'll be direct from us, and we're pretty good about just sending out a return air bill. So hold on to your box, and hopefully you won't need it, but it's not the worst thing in the world to hold on to your box, and we'll get it shipped back.
Okay, very good. And let's thank Jim, man. We finally got
thank
him
you, Jim.
here.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Third time's a charm. I appreciate you being so patient with me.
So God bless everybody. Remember, let's tune in next week, and Fishing Adventures Florida on YouTube. And Mike has promised us to put us on some big redfish Wednesday.
Yeah.
And the
Well-
pressure's on them.
The pressure's on.
God bless you, everybody.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you next week.